Hi, this is Jeff Blauette, technical agronomist with Cooperative Farmers Elevator. And on this week's Field Friday segment, I kind of wanted to, touch on the last herbicide effort on these soybeans. We've kind of been blessed with a nice rain throughout our area this last week. Hopefully we got all the beans, or most of the beans, sprayed before the rain. At least the early planted. There's some late planted beans that maybe haven't been hit yet, but most of that first round is done, hopefully. But this isn't the old, for those of you that remember the old rotisserie, the round popeel, set it and forget it. It's not, beans are definitely not spray it and forget about it. We need to make a round through these beans and make sure we killed all the water hemp. I would almost dare to bet that Liberty is doing most of the heavy lifting trying to kill the water hemp out in these bean fields today. And while Liberty can be a great herbicide and do a really good job, it's also probably one of the more inconsistent if the weather conditions just aren't exactly perfect. And we had some of that. We had some of these cloudy days when some of this stuff was sprayed, some of these smoke filtered days. Didn't have the greatest of humidity for a while. And then we had some fields that had to get sprayed and we weren't really probably all that warm yet. So if we don't have a good sunny day, 80 to 90 degrees with good humidity, we may get sporadic control on this water hemp. Especially early on, we probably might have had some of that was even starting to be a little bit affected by some dry weather and some drought. So I'm gonna tell you that you need to go back and check your fields, especially where the water hemp was at and especially where it was thicker, to make sure you got a solid kill. And it's gonna take more than a road scout. Some of this stuff burns back really well from the top, but you don't kill all the growing points. They're gonna survive. I've got some examples here. This field's been sprayed a little while ago. You can kind of see we burnt some growing points back, but we didn't kill the plant. They're going to continue to grow. This one's going to have to be reapplied. The other challenge we're running into is now we're up to the 1st of July almost, and if you look at the actual labels, Liberty is talking about the label up to R1. Well, R1, if there's a flower on the plant, that is R1. And we do have flowers that are out on a lot of fields, especially the early planted stuff. But even the stuff that was planted in your normal planting window in early to mid-May is probably getting towards flowering if it's not already. Technically, Liberty is off the label then. If you have a flower out in the field, in these plants, and it's not R2 where there's flowers all the way up and down the plant, but there's just a flower here and there, are you going to really do a lot of damage at R1? Probably not, but you might blow off a few flowers with an application. Even though that is tolerant to Liberty, it does have some impact on that plant. And as we get up towards R2 and beyond, then we can really start to have some impact on those beans that are negative with another Liberty application. Enlist, the 2,4-D that's in Enlist is labeled to R2, which is not going to take long from R1 to R2 type beans, but R2 is basically, you might just say flowers up and down the plant. Flowers on one of those top 4 nodes or top couple nodes. That's kind of what R2 is. And it won't take long once you start seeing flowers for that to happen. So then that becomes, kind of an off-label application. Enlist by itself is really honestly not very good on water hemp, especially anything with any size to it. So expecting that to come in and rescue some stuff that's got a bunch of growing points that didn't get knocked off by the Liberty is not a great idea either, probably. It may be your only option on label, unfortunately, in some of these fields. Cobra would be on label for a little while yet. That's more of a pre-harvest interval thing. I have my doubts that we're gonna be very effective with Cobra on a lot of fields anymore. I think we have a lot of this water hemp now has probably got that class of chemistry, the PPOs, is probably getting some resistance in the field, so we may or may not have much impact on that using that product or that line. So I would caution you to assume that everything is good just because it looked clean from the road. I'd get out and take a look at these fields, and if we got to do something, the clock is ticking on us. We need to get some of this stuff done really quickly if we're going to make a reapplication on things. And some of these fields I'm sure are going to need it. This field's going to need it. That I'm in today. So as soon as we dry out, we're going to need to be rolling on these. So the other thing I'd mention with Liberty is coverage is king. We get into these resprays where we've got a bunch of bean canopy that's protecting some of the water hemp underneath it. 20 gallons an absolute minimum with a high coverage type nozzle, and we've done a lot of fields at 25 gallons an acre just to aid in the coverage. So keep that in mind with these reapplications, that if you were trying to get by with 15 gallons an acre or not the highest of pressure before, that might be part of the reason why there's some sporadic control. But also on reapplications, it's got to be 20-25 gallon an acre to get coverage. So just some things to look at to hopefully keep these bean fields clean here at the end, and maybe it's just a patch or two you got to respray, but let's take a look and make sure we're satisfied. So with that, that's this week's Field Friday segment, and we'll see you next week.